Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on a Monday night. Hope your week got off to a fantastic start and that you are ready to discuss this latest breaking news in the NFL regarding Calvin Ridley and sports betting. A fascinating story that I think you guys are going to enjoy getting into over the course of tonight's show. We're going to talk about what the NFL has done, the hammer that has been brought down, and what this means for Calvin Ridley and for any NFL player who would be actively betting on games. A lot of great content to share with you tonight over the course of this evening's show. Before we get into it, though, and again, you'll forgive my voice, I'm working through it right now. Still a little phlegmy from the combine, unfortunately, but we're going to have a great show together. I know that to be so. Before we get started, though, I need you guys to share this show. If you're on Twitter, please retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. We would greatly appreciate your participation that way. If you are on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. And in fact, I will do the very same. That is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you're on YouTube or on Twitch, please subscribe to the A to Z Sports channel where you can get our live stream content 7 days a week. And now that more of you are here, we can go ahead and get into the Calvin Ridley story together because this is a very interesting one that we have prepared for you tonight. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the DraftKings Sportsbook Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I'm proud as always to be presented to you by the fine folks at DraftKings Sportsbook. Promo code A to Z Sports. Ironically enough, we're getting ready to talk about Calvin Ridley and gambling. Calvin Ridley, you should have used the promo code A to Z Sports in the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Two Rivers Ford. I just went and picked up my new 2022 Ford Explorer today from Two Rivers Ford. Can't wait to tell you more about that. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. Brymak Mechanical, B-R-Y-M-A-K, Brymak.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. And of course, the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, GaryAshton.com is where you go for your dream address without the stress. So, if you have not been paying attention to the NFL news cycle, today, Calvin Ridley has been suspended for at least the entire upcoming NFL season. A full year suspension, at least, has been handed down from the NFL. They released a statement today announcing the suspension because he had been caught and has been caught gambling on games in throughout the course of the 2021 season. The league released a statement on Monday announcing the suspension and saying that he had gambled, he being Calvin Ridley, had gambled on games in November over a 5-day stretch when he was on the NFI list to address his mental health. So he had taken some time away to deal with mental health issues, and while doing that had decided, might as well get a little additionally invested in these games. He left football on Halloween, saying that he basically needed to get his personal life in order, and now his personal life has been blowed up yet again. There was a series of tweets Monday from Calvin Ridley saying that he doesn't have a gambling problem and that he bet a total of $1,500. He also tweeted that he couldn't even watch football at the time he made the bets. He also added that to be more healthy when he comes back, I know I was wrong, but I'm getting 1 year, LOL. So yeah, he's getting 1 year. The league hit him hard and hit him fast with this stuff. And it's really the first case that we've seen of this with gambling being legal and, being a big partner of the NFL at this point. So it makes this a little more complicated. The place that I want to start with you guys here tonight is your Two Rivers Ford take. Fair or foul? Let's keep it simple. The at least 1 year suspension of Falcons wide receiver Calvin Ridley. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about this on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Orlando Jones says, is it really the hammer if he's only gone a season? Orlando, a season, a full season for a 5-day stretch of gambling? That $1,500 bet just cost him $11 million. It's not just that he's going to miss games. It's the fact that he is going to get smoked as far as his bank account is concerned. That $1,500 bet just cost him 11 mil. So at this point, especially with some optics of some other stuff in the league that a few of you have brought up. Fair or foul, at least 1 year suspension of Calvin Ridley for gambling on games while on the NFI list. We'll talk about it together in the comment section. And while you guys do that, give me your answer of fair or foul. I'll tell you about our friends at Two Rivers Ford. I went and picked up today my 2022 Ford Explorer XLT. I went through the Built For You program at Two Rivers Ford. That allows you to customize any Ford vehicle, any color, with any accessories that come with your vehicle of choice. They will build it for you, and they will deliver it directly to your door after the vehicle has been manufactured. It's one of the things that makes Two Rivers Ford the best car buying experience around, along with their non-commissioned sales staff and their award-winning customer service. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. So the question is this: fair or foul? Calvin Ridley getting suspended at least 1 year because of gambling as an active NFL player. Let me know how you feel about this. Fair, says Abdul, only a year. I mean, a year is a substantial amount of time. Foul due to the dollar amount of $1,590 total that end up costing him $11 million. Talent gone to waste, says Donald Red. Foul, a season is a bit too much for Dre Wilson. Well, I thought it interesting to hear Marcus Spears talking about this today on NFL Live. I thought he lent some particularly good perspective to this. This was the man they call the Big Swagoo today on ESPN.
Yeah, we talk about the receiving group and the implications on the Atlanta Falcons. Guys, I'm disheartened by this one now. This one hurt me because I've had multiple conversations with Calvin when he was at Alabama. El Boogie and I covered him in college. And to have a senseless act like this cause you to miss a year after you've dealt with personal issues and also injuries the year previous to that, it's just senseless, man. And I know, like, I don't want to come on here and pile on. Obviously, he's been suspended and a lot of things are going to be said and a lot of things are going to transpire. But to the point of the Falcons, listen, franchises get along. They wasn't gonna win no damn thing anyway. So I'm focused on Calvin Ridley and the sense like this like where are you? Where are you from the standpoint of not reading the room and understanding that this is the absolute worst when it comes to sports? This is not just catered to this year, y'all. Like, betting in sports has been one of the most egregious things that we've seen from players while they're in a league. They've been fighting the last 40 years to get Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame in baseball because he betted when he was playing baseball. This is huge. This is not just something you shake a stick at. Oh, Calvin really out for a year. He'll be back. I am interested to see how franchises will look at this going forward. His career may be hanging in the balance, let alone being suspended 1 year from gambling, betting while he's a player in a.
So that's Marcus Spears talking about Calvin Ridley today on NFL Live. And to his point, and we'll talk about Pete Rose later on, because, of course, anytime you talk about gambling in sports, Pete Rose is going to come up. A year has been the penalty, and this is something I did not know. Thank you, Puka, for pointing this out. A year has been the penalty for gambling in the NFL since the 1960s. I had no idea that was, in fact, the case. So if you're asking me fair or foul, the answer is 1,000% fair. Calvin Ridley did this in his own name. He didn't have somebody do it for him, which would have been the intelligent thing to do. He made bets while taking time away from mental health as an active NFL player. The rules are the rules. And I understand that some people may think this is completely ridiculous given that he wasn't playing at the time, but you have to be realistic about this. One, know the rules. Two, what are you doing while you're on the NFI list? Gambling is the way that you're going to keep up with your mental health. I'm not saying that you can't have hobbies, but I mean, my God, man, read the room. It's just such an egregious violation of, frankly, trust. Because if the team at the time, the Falcons and Arthur Smith, who we know well here in Tennessee, as well as Terry Fontenot, their general manager, are willing to give you the time you need to get right as one of their better players, get mentally right, completely reasonable. and then to betray them like this, even as you may not think it is an outright betrayal, this is a broken trust between the team and the player. And what Marcus Spears brings up there, it may sound extreme, the idea of, putting his career in jeopardy, but this is the little kind of stuff that comes up when you talk about the decision to sign a player or not sign a player. Can you trust him to be available? For Calvin Ridley, it's going to be a year and a half without him playing football, basically. From October on, Halloween on. Egregious the way that he has acted here, even if you think that what he did and the dollar amount was minimal. And it was minimal, but still unacceptable at this point. Now, that's an odd way to transition into telling you guys about DraftKings Sportsbook, but listen, DraftKings Sportsbook, it's not their fault, nor is it your fault that you're not betting if you're not betting on conference tournament time. SoCon tournament was crazy, Chattanooga winning on a last-second buzzer beater in OT. We've got the WAC going on right now with the Gonzaga Bulldogs, currently as 1 seed playing in conference tournaments. You can get in on the action by betting $5 in the DraftKings Sportsbook app with the opportunity to win $200 in free bets if the team you bets win. It's just that simple if you're a new customer. DraftKings Sportsbook customers can also bet on college hoops with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout. The more legs you add, the more money you can win. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use promo code A to Z Sports, bet $5 on any college hoops team to win their game, and get $200 in free bets if they do. If they win, you win with promo code A to Z Sports this week at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Tennessee only. Minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So is it fair or foul? Dom Odell says this story right into a DraftKings live read. Buck, as it go? Listen, I've never, sometimes I do those things smoother than the average person. There was no smooth way to do that. And shout out DraftKings Sportsbook for keeping this show alive. Welcome back, by the way, to the primetime show from the DraftKings Sportsbook studios. I wish there was a cleaner way to do that, but what can you do? JJ on Facebook Live says, betting is bad. Save your hard-earned money and spend it on family. Well, no, betting isn't. No, see, there's the mistake. And that's why, I wanted to find a way to talk about this because obviously I do endorsements for a gambling company, right? And I bet. Like, I don't bet on the NFL because I'm an NFL reporter, but if you didn't think I had money on Chattanooga as the 1 seed in the SoCon championship, you're nuts. Like, I'll bet on college basketball. I'll bet on college football. Betting is, you have to be able to, one, you have to do it responsibly. And two, you have to have the means to be able to bet. Not everybody is in a financial place to bet. Now, like for JJ, for example, you bring up spend it on family. Well, like I don't have family. Like what am I going to do? I got one of the cats in the office here. I got 2 cats. One of the cats is hanging out in the office with me, waiting to be fed after the primetime show. I'm going to buy her an extra pallet of Fancy Feast, no free ads, Fancy Feast food with the money that I would otherwise spend on gambling. No, it's a good way for me to honestly keep up with sports that I normally wouldn't pay attention to. I think that it's case by case scenario, but that doesn't mean that gambling is bad. It doesn't mean that sports gambling is bad. It means that you have to have the discipline. You have to have the discipline to understand, are you able to do it? And can you control yourself as a part of it, right? That's why I give out the Tennessee Red Line number every time I do a DraftKings read, because I don't want people to get addicted to things like gambling because it can be complicated. But, for most people, they don't do it in excess. And that I think is the defining factor here, right? This is somebody who can afford a $1,500 bet. The point being, if he wanted to do it, I'm not saying that he should have done it anyway, because obviously you can't do this legally in the NFL, But if he wanted to do it, have somebody else make the bet for you, right? Dope. Don't put your name on it. I think it was I can't remember which I think it was like the Caesars app or something like that he put like all of his information in. So there's a paper trail for Calvin Ridley. Again, I'm not saying to do it either way, but if you're going to do it, don't be a dumbass about it. He's out here tweeting through it, by the way, which we'll talk about here in just a second. As far as what he did the most wrong. Sports betting is not bad. Sports betting is a means of entertainment, just as, would you say that video games are bad because they take time? And maybe you're not somebody who plays video games. Would you say that sport, just generally the consumption of sports at this time is bad because you're doing that? You're watching meaningless college basketball games instead of spending time with your family, right? Like, I mean, he just blew up his NFL career. This is 1,000% on Calvin Ridley. Don't make gambling the scapegoat in this. That, I think, is a big mistake. Gabriel says, dang it, the one time I agree with Mark Jones, Buck backs him up, LOL. Well, listen, I think this is just common sense type stuff. One, don't do it. Two, if you're going to do it, don't do it in such a dumb way as to get caught. And three, don't blame the thing that you're doing. Blame yourself for not having the self-control and the restraint and the, frankly, just the general knowledge to know that this is not allowed in your league, even if you're on the NFI list. Like, that is utterly ridiculous what Calvin Ridley did. And so I want to talk about what you think his biggest mistake in all of this is. What was Calvin Ridley's biggest mistake betting on NFL games? Let me know in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We'll talk about it together right after I tell you about our friends at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. GaryAshton.com is where you go for the Intel Edge that only the Ashton team can deliver. The Gary Ashton Intel Edge is what allows somebody like me, because I use the Ashton team in searching for my dream address without the stress, that allowed me to maximize my investment so that almost 3 years later after the purchase of my home, my property value has gone through the roof because they put me in a position to succeed. GaryAshton.com is where you go for the official real estate agent of the Titans, the Preds, and of A to Z Sports Prime Time. So what was Calvin Ridley's most egregious mistake betting on NFL games? Let me know, and we can talk about this. And while we do that, I'm going to have Mike Garafolo walk you through how Calvin Ridley actually got caught.
Yes, well, we know this occurred in November. It was when Ridley was away from the team. Remember, he was on a leave because of what he termed mental health issues in the league. The team saying that as well. I have done some quick work on this one because this one just popped up this afternoon, even though the Falcons said they were aware of it for quite some time. And my understanding is that Ridley used his phone to bet on games, again, when he was away from the Falcons, to place parlay bets, which is bets on multiple teams. And the NFL was made aware of it, conducted an investigation, and through their gambling partners were able to corroborate the information. And remember, when the NFL did announce their gambling partnerships within the last couple of years, they did make the statement saying, we will be able to work with our partners to make sure the integrity of the game is upheld. In other words, if we find out that teams or players or coaches or executives, whatever, are involved in gambling, we will be able to work with our betting partners to corroborate any information. That is what happened in this case. That is how the NFL found out and how they conducted their investigation and confirmed the information that leads to the suspension of Calvin Ridley for the 2022 season at least. He can apply for reinstatement after the Super Bowl this next season. He also does have 3 days to appeal this decision, so it is not necessarily final, but the NFL is certainly confident in their information to levy this suspension against Calvin Ridley.
So what was his biggest mistake in all of this? For MB says he's totally getting caught. Like he got caught, right? He's not the first to do it, but he's absolutely the first to get caught in this new gambling era of the NFL. Titans Kyle just says simply getting caught. Why the F would you bet on your own team, though, says Ronnie Sneed. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Mark Jones just says, using his name. Find one of your buddies to make the bet for you. Just Venmo him and make the bet for him. It's just so stupid. Gabriel says the most egregious mistake was betting on his own team. Win or lose, both are incriminating in so many ways. Yes, that is so. But the biggest issue of all of this is the fact that Calvin Ridley, immediately as the news is breaking, is on Twitter copping to it. Okay, sure, he's going to get suspended. The league put out a statement. The Falcons put out a statement Calvin Ridley did this. But when you immediately, in real time, tweet through it, when you publicly admit guilt on this, creating, no wiggle room for an appeal process. Remember, Garofalo said he had 3 days to appeal. The NFL is going to look at his appeal and be like, what is this string of tweets yesterday from? Are you kidding me? Are you an idiot? You must be, to have bet on this game in the first place. But on top of it, you're removing any possibility that suspension would be able to be lessened from at least a year, because you're just out there yeah, I bet $1,500, but I don't have a gambling problem. Buddy, respectfully, shut the hell up. Log off. Twitter is going to help you with this? What do you feel like you've alleviated yourself of some kind of responsibility because you told everybody on social media? Yeah, guys, I don't have a gambling problem, and this is kind of ridiculous that I'm getting a year. The NFL is going to look at this and be like, you can't be this stupid. So stupid. He should have bet the farm, says Jeremy Graham. That way, when he got it, or when he caught it, it would have covered the $11 million he isn't getting now. Yeah, man. It's just, Omar says he would have said somebody hacked him. Helps mental health defense, says Puka. Well, I don't know about, or maybe I missed an earlier comment from Puka. Oh, but how do they find out if the player gets somebody else's bets, or what happens if player is pressured to throw games? It's a great question, Puka. Like I said, just don't do it in the first place, and you won't have these issues. But if you're going to do it in a way that it's at least a little less conspicuous than what he has done here. It's a really, really bad deal that he's done here. And now he's going to at least miss a year. EA Domino says this is Tannehill's fault. Yeah, I was waiting for somebody to start saying that Tannehill literally threw the game against the Bengals because of the 3 interceptions that he threw. But I suppose that my mind is working differently than your all's is this evening. All right, let's wrap this up because I'm tired of the sound of my own voice. I sound snotty, I sound congested, I sound miserable, and I appreciate you guys bearing through this with me because I'm Indianapolis has done a number on my body. I'm not used to that kind of 5-day sprint anymore. I don't think I've done that since spring break in college. So you'll forgive the way that I sound, but I guess the only question remaining is, would Pete Rose approve or disapprove of Calvin Ridley? Let me know on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Would Pete Rose, the most famous of the active, or was at the time active players, or I guess coaches at the time, to bet on baseball, would Pete Rose approve or disapprove of Calvin Ridley? You guys let me know in the comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And while you do that, I will tell you about our friends at Brymak Mechanical. BRYMAK, Brymak.com. Satisfaction guaranteed on all of your HVAC needs. Brymak has you covered on all of your HVAC needs. As I mentioned, commercial, residential, Brymak has you covered. They're the best in the business for a reason. Brymak.com. So, would Pete Rose approve or disapprove of Calvin Ridley? Now, I don't know Pete Rose. Obviously, that's one of the biggest debates in all of sports. Should Pete Rose get into the Hall of Fame because he bet on games? Pete would have said, let it ride, says Jeremy Graham. Ronnie Sneed says Pete would have been proud. Pete's got a lot of crazy gambling stories himself. Dre Wilson says he would 100% approve. Pete Rose would. Well, let's hear from the Hit King on one of his gambling stories, because Pete wasn't around when you could just download, for example, the DraftKings Sportsbook app, plug in the promo code A to Z Sports, and bet on games in real time. Pete had to do it the old school way with a bookie. And Pete Rose's gambling stories are batshit crazy.
Don Zimmer knew more about baseball than anybody, including me, until he passed away a couple years ago. We went to the same high school, same neighborhood. Dads were literally teammates. And his dad was the nicest man in the world, but he was the biggest gambler. And he told me one day, I'm just a kid, he said, Pete, I had a dream last night about white hats and black hats and big hats and round hats and square hats and different kind of hats. And I went to work, as he did. He owned a produce company, and a guy brought him in a new Cincinnati red hat. And they went to River Downs Racetrack, which is 10 miles east of Cincinnati. He opened up the program, and number one is Top Hat. This is 1951. He bet $1,000 to win on Top Hat.
Oh,
they're going 2 turns. They're coming down. The last jump, a 50-1 shot, beat Top Hat. And I said, Dud, who won the race? He said, Sombrero. So the moral of the story, if Don Zimmer had been Spanish, his dad would have won $50,000.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Sombrero, Pete Rose says. The hustler, man. Pete is a professional gambler now. He stays living out in Las Vegas. I think he does talk radio, too. He signs autographs out there in Vegas. Pete Rose would 1,000, well, he'd probably disapprove because obviously this has cost Calvin Ridley a substantial amount of money. But yeah, the Hit King stays telling crazy gambling stories. He is, he's a trip, Pete Rose is. He was great on television. I don't know. There's no baseball, so obviously he's not doing Fox this year, which, that's a totally different topic and a level of stupidity for another day that we'll have time to talk about later on. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you, as always, for hanging out. Radio show tomorrow from 10 to 1 Central Time on 104.5 The Zone. Franchise tag day, the deadline tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time. We will find out if the Tennessee Titans are going to tag Harold Landry, and we'll talk about it on the radio tomorrow. And if they do make them, well, either way, we'll be talking about it tomorrow night on Prime Time. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will speak to you then.